that is truly what sent me on this research that helped create my entire career, because the curcumin research that I first encountered as a teenager when I was interning at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, and then later I spent years studying at the doctoral level when I was doing my PhD, was so compelling. Welcome back to the Inflammation Code podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta, and today we're doing a solo episode. So I want to start today with a question, and I want you to actually sit with it for a second before I answer it. When do you think inflammation starts doing damage in your body? Is it the moment you feel it? Is it when that knee starts to ache when you're going down the stairs? Is it that lower back pain that won't let you stand up straight after you've been sitting for too long? The stiffness in your hands when you wake up in the morning? Is that when the damage starts? Or, here's the uncomfortable answer, no. By the time you feel it, inflammation has usually been active for a long time, months, and sometimes even years. And so pain isn't the beginning of the story. It's actually one of the last chapters. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Because if you understand this one thing, that pain is the last signal your body sends, not the first, then it changes everything about how you take care of yourself. So let me tell you how I learned about this, because I had to learn it the hard way in my own body. After I had my kids, I developed something called plantar fasciitis. And that's a sharp stabbing pain in the bottom of your foot. It feels like you're stepping on a nail every morning. I literally woke up and would hear my kid cry and start running and think someone had broken glass. Every day I'd be like, why is there a broken glass here? Why is there a broken glass here? That's so weird. Never thinking it could be something going on inside my own feet. And along with it, I had this constant back pain that just wouldn't let up. And like most people, my first instinct was, okay, let me just treat this pain. I didn't ask what was underneath it. I just wanted to make it stop. And so I did what I was told. I went to the orthopedic office. I went and met with physical therapy. And they said, oh, this is really simple. All you have to do is take some pain meds. And so my first instinct was, okay, fine, I'll just do what they tell me to do. And so they gave me NSAIDs. They said, take these NSAIDs 24 hours a day for 10 days. And NSAIDs are that category of over-the-counter pain relievers like ibuprofen and Advil. And I took that for 10 days straight. But the thing is, it backfired fast because those pain relievers tore up my stomach. And I couldn't get through a meal without an ache in my belly afterwards. So now I had joint pain, this connective tissue pain also happening, and a damaged gut on top of that. And I was no closer to understanding with any of this what was happening in my body in the first place. I was just masking the signal. And the masking was causing new damage, new problems. And so that's what sent me back into the research that has actually shaped my entire career. Because when that happened, I went to orthopedics and I said, hey, how can you give me a solution, but the solution caused a new problem? I'm not okay with that. Your painkiller has messed up my gut. Do you know the decades I've invested to have a healthy gut microbiome and a healthy immune system? I can't sacrifice that. They were like, well, that's our pain solution. Just take it. And I thought, whoa. That has to change. You can't get me out of one pain and start a new one. That's not a real solution. That's a problematic solution with a price tag that I don't want to pay. And so that is truly what sent me on this research that helped create my entire career, because the curcumin research that I first encountered as a teenager when I was interning at MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, and then later I spent years studying at the doctoral level when I was doing my PhD, was so compelling. But this time I wasn't asking what can mask this pain. I was asking what is actually driving it and what can calm the process at the source. And that distinction masking a symptom versus addressing the mechanism is everything. It's the whole reason I do what I do. And it's the through line of this entire episode that we're going to talk about today. So if you're in pain, buckle up and be ready to understand what is really happening here. So let me back up and explain the thing that makes all of this click. There are two very different kinds of inflammation. And the difference between them is the whole key to this conversation. The first is acute inflammation. Acute just means sudden and short term. This kind is the loud kind. It's more obvious. It's redness, swelling, heat, pain. It's when you break a bone or you sprain an ankle or you get a splinter or something happens acutely. And your body responds immediately and visibly. And that kind of inflammation is just doing its job. It's protective. It's supposed to be uncomfortable because the discomfort gets your attention, it gets you to stop, and it lets your body heal. Acute inflammation is actually a good thing. We need that for our safety. So I want to be really clear about that. It's your body working exactly the way that it's designed to do for your protection. Now, the second kind is chronic inflammation. Chronic just means long-term, ongoing, maybe low level for some of us. And this one is completely different. Chronic inflammation is quiet. It's diffuse, meaning it's spread out. So it's not in one obvious spot. It can show up as fatigue, brain fog, a few extra pounds that you can't explain, or joints that feel a little stiffer than they used to, or sleep that's a little bit worse than it used to be. And so none of that reads as an emergency, so you don't treat it like one. And we explain it away. We say, I'm just older. I'm just getting older. I'm stressed out right now. Maybe I just need more coffee. Maybe it's just my work. I don't know. And underneath all of that explaining, the fire keeps burning. And this is the part I need you to really hear. Pain, the kind you can't ignore, is usually what happens after months or years of that quieter damage finally reaching a breaking point. It's not the first signal your body sends. It's one of the last. It's the signal your body sends when it's like run out of all of its quieter ways to get your attention. And it's saying, hey, listen to me. There's a problem here. Your body was whispering to you for a long time. But the pain in your body is finally shouting, and now you hear it. So let's talk about the thing almost everyone reaches for first. Tylenol, Advil, ibuprofen. And I want to be really honest with you about what these medications are actually doing, and just as importantly, what they're not doing. Tylenol works differently than Advil. So let's separate them because people lump them together and they're not the same tool. Tylenol is acetaminophen. It mostly works on how your brain perceives the pain signal. It doesn't do much to the inflammation that's happening in the tissue itself. So you feel less pain, but the underlying process, whatever's actually damaging your joint or your tissue, is still running in the background. You've just turned on the volume on the alarm. You haven't touched the fire itself. Here's what's interesting. In my household, I have a family of Tylenol and Advil popping people. And I see it all the time because I'm married into a family of physicians. They're like, just take an Advil, just take a Tylenol. And I look at them and I'm like, well, why? They're like, well, you're in pain. I'm like, well, shouldn't we ask why? Shouldn't we ask why there's a headache? No, just take the Tylenol. I'm like, the Tylenol doesn't cure the headache. The Tylenol just takes away the pain. Why do you have the headache? Don't you want to know? Are you dehydrated? Are you exhausted? Did you get enough sleep? Have you eaten enough? Did you forget to have your cup of tea that keeps you going? Like, is this forgetting your caffeine because you're used to it? In my case, a glass or two of water with electrolytes cures the majority of my headaches. I'm just a dehydrated houseplant walking around dying on the vine because I won't drink a glass of water. Should I be taking drugs for that? Or should I be hydrating? Isn't this kind of simple? Like, why Why are we just throwing stuff to mask our signals instead of asking, why, body? Why? Why are you sending me the signal? How can I help you? What would you like me to do? Pretty powerful. We think of the body as like 18 different organs and parts, or maybe hundreds. I don't know in your case. But what if you realize it's mind, body, spirit, and it's integrated? And you really tuned in and asked, what is going on here and how can I help? Because I actually want to support my body from the ground up. So I'll get off my soapbox there, but goodness gracious, with the masking of pain signals. And we know that Advil and ibuprofen work differently. They do act on inflammation, but broadly, the way we already talked about it, they blunt and they reduce swelling and pain everywhere in the body, not just at the site that needs help, and they come with a cost. For me, that cost shows up as stomach damage after just 10 days of taking it. And here's the part that matters most. Neither of these medications is designed to stop the disease. They're not designed to stop the disease process that's underneath the pain. They're just designed to manage a symptom. And when a symptom manager becomes your only strategy, month after month, year after year, you can feel functional on the surface, while the actual damage, the cartilage breaking down, the immune system attacking your own joints, keeps progressing underneath. You're just not hearing it. You're not seeing it. It's happening underneath. You haven't healed that yet. We're not healing by taking painkillers. And that's the trap. You feel like you're managing it, but the relief itself can be part of what's delaying you from ever asking why this is happening in the first place. I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Houston. I'm from Houston, Texas. And I was running errands with my mom. And my mom's definitely getting older. She's in her 70s. And she said to me, just go grab me the Advil. And I looked at her like, do you know who I am? Do you know what I've studied for over a decade? Do you know what I say to people all day long? I say, you can take turmeric for that. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, over 10,000 people have taken my turmeric and they don't reach for Advil anymore. What are you doing? She's like, well, Shivani, I'm in pain and I'm tired. And if I just take the Advil, I won't be tired. And I looked at her and I was like, Mom, Advil's not an anti-tired medication. It is a specific anti-inflammatory that works on one pathway. Let's talk about why you're inflamed, which I already know the answer to, insulin resistance, etc. But how can you just keep popping Advil all day to keep working, but never pause and ask what's going on? And she goes, really? 10,000 people took your turmeric? I was like, yes, Mom. Probably double that by now. She's like, okay, bring me some. I'll take it instead. So she took it. And she was like, whoa, my hand pain is going away. I was like, yeah, because we're approaching inflammation from multiple directions. I built synergistic formulas from Ayurveda that literally have a global approach and it's natural. She was like, oh, okay. It was just funny that the mindset of, I'll just pop an Advil so I won't be tired because it'll just take away my pain, but never pausing to ask, how am I going to reverse this joint pain in the first place? It was just shocking to me. So I share that story because that might be your mom too. And we need to have these conversations with the people we love. We're never going to create the change we need. And then we're going to wonder years later how this inflammation that was burning for decades and decades and decades became X, Y, and Z diagnosis at the end. And now we're dealing with what I'm scared of, which is hospital stays and how are we going to manage really big disease that could lead to really rapid deterioration. So getting back to the topic today. Let's get specific about what's actually happening inside the joint, because I think the mechanism is what makes this real for us. Let's take osteoarthritis. That's the wear and tear kind of joint pain that most people develop as they age. Everyone who's met me for a decade who picks up my brochure goes, my mom needs that. I'm like, yes, all of our moms need turmeric. Agreed. And that pain comes from cartilage breaking down. So cartilage is the smooth cushioning at the ends of your bones that let your joints glide. Think about that. And a big driver of that breakdown of that cartilage is a set of enzymes. Enzymes are just proteins in your body that speed up chemical reactions. 2 of them are called COX-2 and LOX. They produce inflammatory chemicals and they actively break down the cartilage that's cushioning your joints. So the pain that you feel going down the stairs, it's downstream of an enzyme process that's been running for a long time before your knee ever got to become this complaint and this knee started complaining to you about its pain. Now take rheumatoid arthritis. That's an autoimmune condition, meaning the immune system, which is supposed to protect you, gets confused and attacks your own body instead. In this case, it attacks the joints. So there's a specific immune cell involved here. It's called a T helper 17 cell. And think of these like soldiers that have gone rogue. They're supposed to defend you, but instead they're attacking your joint tissue, keeping the whole inflammatory cycle going and going. So again, it's a cellular process. It's active long before pain ever becomes the headline for you. And this is why I think about a compound like curcumin. And curcumin is just the active ingredients and active compounds inside of turmeric. So I think of that differently than I think about conventional pain relief. The pain relievers I took, NSAIDs, and the stronger cousins called corticosteroids, they tend to work like a sledgehammer. They suppress broadly. They bring the pain down, yes, but they don't discriminate about what else they're shutting down in the process, which is exactly why my own stomach paid the price. Completely different area that I wasn't focused on. But curcumin works differently. Research has shown it works more like a scalpel than a sledgehammer. It appears to calm those overactive rogue immune cells. It appears to work on the COX-2 and LOX enzymes that break down cartilage. It targets the mechanism instead of just muting the signal so we can ignore it. And in studies that compared curcumin directly against ibuprofen and against a common prescription pain medication like diclofenac, curcumin performed comparably on pain and swelling, so equivalent results, but without the gastrointestinal damage. That's incredible. That's not a wellness claim. That's what shows up when researchers study the mechanism instead of just chasing that symptom. And I need to pause here for an important safety note, and I want you to hear this clearly. If you're on methotrexate or any other prescribed autoimmune medication, do not add high-dose curcumin without talking to the doctor who's managing the treatment first. This is education. It is not a replacement for your care team. Please loop in your doctor because curcumin is strong. And so we do have to check with certain medications if there's going to be interactions or issues or if we're going to negate the benefits. Now, here's where Ayurveda adds something that modern medicine usually doesn't offer. We offer context. The answer to the question, why is this showing up in my body in this particular way? In Ayurveda, joints and the nervous system fall largely under Vata. You guys have heard me talk about Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, the 3 doshas that in my book I talk about as an elemental design system for our life. Vata is one of the 3 constitutional energies, and it governs movement, dryness, and the body's ability to settle down. And so if you think of Vata as your air energy, it's what moves everything. But when it's out of balance, it brings dryness and instability. And here's the key. When Vata goes out of balance, which happens to almost every single woman who's moving through perimenopause and menopause, because on the circadian clock of life, our last third of our life is a Vata season. then the classic symptoms and signs are dryness and stiffness. Dryness and stiffness, that's the exact same terrain that we're talking about with chronic inflammation. And that's where chronic inflammation loves to take hold quietly, long before it announces itself as pain. And that's not a coincidence. It's really the same fire. It's just described through these two different lenses. One is cellular. It's the Western medicine approach, the modern science approach. I love that science approach too. And in Western science, we look at the enzymes and the immune cells. And then in the Ayurvedic approach, we look at the elementals. Ayurveda looks at the vata imbalance. And they're not pointing to the same root cause. Really two different viewpoints on two different approaches here. And this is what I love about bringing these two worlds together. There's not a conflict. They're actually describing the same truth in two different languages. So if pain is the last signal, not the first, what do you actually do with that? Let me give you 3 things so you can get started. First, stop waiting for pain to be your cue to act. If you're dealing with fatigue that doesn't match how much you slept, that's something to look at. Is there brain fog or a little extra inflammation around your midsection? Are you having joints that feel stiffer in the morning than they used to? That is the quieter version of the same fire. Don't wait for it to get loud. Those whispers are the invitation. That's when the work is easiest and the fire is the smallest. At those first little signals, that's your sign. Let's start looking at what's happening here. This is inflammaging. Let's shift our behavior. Second, when pain does show up, ask what it's revealing, not just how to turn it off. Masking pain without addressing the mechanism underneath it is exactly how I ended up with a damaged stomach and the same unresolved joint pain that I started with. The pain was information. I was treating it like noise instead of getting to that root cause of what was happening. And third, support the mechanism directly. Sprinkling turmeric on your food doesn't get you anywhere close to what these studies are measuring. The research uses a properly standardized extract, 95% curcuminoids, paired with black pepper for absorption, because turmeric on its own barely absorbs. If you're going to use turmeric as more than a seasoning, it has to be dosed like the compound that the research is actually studying. And that is the exact reason that I formulated the way that I did. Not turmeric as a spice, curcumin as the concentrated, third-party tested, properly absorbed compound that the science points to. Because that's the result I wanted to give. I actually wanted to do better. I wanted to be the best. So we'd get maximum results. And so here's what I want you to walk away with. Pain isn't your enemy, and it isn't random. It's actually proof that something has been happening in your body for longer than you realized. And the real work isn't turning the signal off. The real work is listening earlier before your body has to shout. And I'll share this. I just got through a book launch. I got to write and share this incredible book. Let's see if I have a copy around me. Here we go. The Inflammation Code book, right? And guess what I did for years? First, I had to write the book. That took a lot of sitting. Then I went on an incredible podcast tour for the book, which involved a lot of sitting. And when you're on podcast, you're actually sitting still. You're supposed to sit in one spot and not move. And so I started having this hip pain over a year ago. My hip would hurt. I would get up, my hip would hurt. And recently, finally, I was like, I need an MRI. Like, what is happening here? So I go to orthopedics and they're like, we can just inject you. I was like, oh, so you can just like mask my pain for me, but not actually tell me how I caused this and how I will now just continue with the same behavior and make this worse over time. And as I age, this is harder to deal with. No, thank you. Thank you. That's usually not the door I choose. So I went to PT and we did a huge analysis and we've decided Shivani hasn't strengthened the muscles in that area. Even though she's going to the gym, even though she's lifting, she's doing a lot of global movements. I am doing a lot of global movements and avoiding activating the right muscles that are needed for my hip not to hurt. That's a little humbling. I didn't really want to hear that, but I did. I said, okay, PT 3 times a week. I'll do it. I'm committed. And so I am doing it 3 times a week. It's next to my office, so it's not that hard. But I'm also starting to ask the question, what else is going on? Because that's one inflammatory pain. And so as I get really honest and real with myself, I'm like, well, I have been having neck pain. And I did have a full body Prenuvo scan. And that thing highlighted a few things for me. There's an annular tear in my spine that I didn't know about. So the responsible thing to do now is go investigate. Go understand what's happening. Go have conversations with doctors and say, hey, is there anything I shouldn't be doing in the long run to harm this? Can I do back squats or should I stop that permanently? I just want to know because I don't want to harm myself and then forever have this chronic inflammation burden or be wearing and tearing on my body that's not sustainable or healthy. And so just know that all of you guys out there who suffer with joint pain and inflammation and these things, I too am a client. I too am popping my turmeric gold and inflammation relief all day to really support my body as I go try to figure out the mechanics. Is it my gait? Is it my shoes? Is it sitting too much? Is it not enough core? Is it not enough glute medius? Like, what is it? And how am I going to go build what I need to have better longevity? So just know, I'm in the boat with you. I'm happy to help. I'm rebuilding my dream team. I used to have a great dream team for my health when it came to all this. And now I'm rebuilding it because I need it again. And that's our job, is build your dream team of practitioners. Is it acupuncture? Is it chiropractic? Figure out the right person for you to be your guide to rebuilding your body to its most vibrant. I think that's always so important. It's mind, body, spirit connected. We are not separate body parts. It's one body. We're given this one sacred body, one sacred temple that we get to have. And when my body's in pain, I don't feel great. I'm not as happy because I feel those pain signals. And so that's why I wanted to do this episode for you today, so you could kind of start to understand that pain is the last signal you get. And much earlier, there were small signs. And it's our job to train ourselves to listen better. I'll share one more thing. Recently, I was back in the science of curcumin. I'm starting to write research papers and articles. And as I was in the literature, I read something profoundly interesting. I wonder if I can find it for you. I was preparing on curcumin for brain health, curcumin for a lot of things. And it was super fascinating. But here's one thing I found that just like blew my mind. And it was the idea of our cell membranes and how our body understands pain signals. So I'll go into this and then we will wrap up for today. So picture your cell membrane as a warehouse wall. And imagine that built right into that wall is a raw material called arachidonic acid. And think of it as this reactive filling that's packed inside certain bricks in the wall. I know this is weird, but just imagine this warehouse wall with bricks with stuff stuffed inside. This is going to be profound, guys. I know I'm a nerd, but this is profound to me. Under calm conditions, that stuff just sits there. It's structural. It's inert. It does nothing. But when a cell gets stressed, imagine how many of us are stressed, whether there's injury or inflammation or a trigger of any kind, then there's an enzyme called PLA2 that goes to work. And think of PLA2 as a worker with a chisel. It starts cracking open those specific bricks and releasing the arachidonic acid out onto what I like to call the loading dock. And so here's where it gets interesting. Because once that raw material hits the dock, it can get picked up by one of two different delivery trucks, each headed to a different factory that's making a different product. And this is such an oversimplification because we can go a couple steps back into like NF-kappa B and TNF alpha and a lot of other enzymes. But let's stay with this analogy. So truck one coming in to pick up its delivery load is COX-2. It drives the arachidonic acid to a factory that makes something called prostaglandins. And those are the molecules behind our pain, our swelling, our fever. And so this is the truck that ibuprofen goes after. And an NSAID is a roadblock. It's placed specifically on the COX-2 driveway. So it blocks that enzyme. And you shut down that one factory. You do with COX-2. It's effective, but it's only stopping one track. And so truck 2 is called 5-LOX. It has the same raw material, the arachidonic acid, but a completely different destination. It's going to a factory that makes leukotrienes instead. And the leukotrienes play a different game entirely. They recruit immune cells. They drive actually our airway constriction. And critically, they're behind the kind of chronic, low-grade, smoldering inflammation that you see in our joints and our gut tissue. So it's not the sharp acute flare, but it's that slow burn that never quite goes away. And so here's the problem. Ibuprofen's roadblock only sits on that COX-2 driveway. But the 5-LOX truck keeps running along completely untouched. Making leukotrienes, driving chronic inflammation through a route that no NSAID on the market can reach. It's just going to keep on going. And this is exactly why turmeric and boswellia are such a powerful pair. And it's not marketing. It's actually the mechanism. Curcumin puts a partial roadblock on both the driveways. But boswellia, through its boswellic acid, all of its boswellic acids actually, specifically AKBA, is a precise and potent roadblock that's built specifically for that 5-LOX driveway. So it's not redundant with turmeric. It's actually covering the exact route that the curcumin or turmeric only partially reaches. So now that the piece that connects this straight to the dinner table is interesting to me. Arachidonic acid is an omega-6 fat. Your body either gets it directly from food or builds it from linoleic acid, which is abundant in vegetable oils and processed food. This is why in my home we have 0 vegetable oils. I don't care what a recipe says. It doesn't exist in my home. We don't own canola oil, any of that poisonous garbage. Processed foods, I significantly limit. Am I perfect? Of course not. I love chips. I buy like the organic kind. I try to buy it with avocado oil, which is kind of rare nowadays. It's like Siete brand foods or nobody, which is tough. I watch who I buy tortillas from. Anything I'm buying that's made for me, I am watching that ingredient list closely and limiting the total processed foods and vegetables. But omega-3s, the EPA and DHA that's in fish oil, compete for those exact same spots in the membrane wall and the exact same enzymes. I found that so fascinating. I don't know if you guys nerd out like I do, but instead of the wall being full of omega-6, it could be full of omega-3. So when a membrane's bricks filling is EPA instead of arachidonic acid, and that same chiseling process happens, then the COX and LOX trucks still run, but they're forced to build much weaker, far less inflammatory versions of prostaglandin and leukotrienes. And that's the actual mechanistic reason why we all are saying raise your omega-3s, lower your omega-6 ratio. You're not taking a supplement and hoping. You're actually changing that raw material that's sitting in the wall before the alarm ever goes off. But cell stress will still release the raw materials. And we know most of us are going to have a pretty high amount of omega-6s in this day and age. So these two trucks, these two pathways, these two different faces of inflammation, COX-2 versus LOX, one is acute and one is chronic. So your diet decides how potent that raw material is to begin with. And turmeric and boswellia together are covering both roots of that warehouse. And this is not folklore. That's 5,000 years of Ayurvedic formulation intelligence landing exactly where modern enzymology says it should. We're in this beautiful moment where botanicals, we can call it herbal medicine, you can call it ancient Ayurvedic wisdom. I mean, Chinese medicine uses very similar herbs to us in Ayurveda. All these wisdoms are saying there's some powerful tools here. Use them. Reach for them. Reach for them first. Heal at the most foundational level, at the cellular level. Why are you reaching for something to blunt a pain signal? And so when I created fusionary formulas a decade ago, I made turmeric gold because it followed the exact science published. It followed the double-blind placebo-controlled trials, the research papers, the literature. There were 17,000 published papers in PubMed at the time. And I was like, well, my job is to change how Western medicine talks to me and people like me when I have pain. So I better follow their science because that's what they're going to believe in is their science. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with building the best turmeric formula to deliver that result, following that wisdom. But then I thought, what if I made a formula my way? And let's see which one does better. What if we made a second formula that follows the ancient Ayurvedic wisdom, pulling not just the curcumin from turmeric, but the boswellia, that secondary synergistic herb that's also doing the job similarly, almost equally to that curcumin. Then alongside that, we're going to start putting all the other herbs that help it go where it needs to go. Amla, guduchi, dried ginger, of course the black pepper, so it absorbs. But a host of herbs, a symphony of herbs that support the body from all directions. And so it's been fascinating watching how people use them because so many people love inflammation relief. And they call us and they text us and they DM us and they tell me in person. And it's so validating because it proves everything I just said, everything I just taught you. The combination of the two, the synergy of the herbs from Mother Nature, following the ancient wisdom, is the best way to go. And then you can add on extra curcumin because guess what? We're pretty inflamed nowadays for a multitude of reasons. We need much more horsepower added to the equation. And so both are wonderful, inflammation relief and turmeric gold. So to wrap up today, I love talking about inflammation, how we're addressing it, but I also like to highlight the lifestyle piece. And today I wanted to address pain, and I've talked about it at the level of the joint, but truly, I never made Fusionary Formulas, the supplement company, to only deliver a pill for a problem. Fusionary was built because I wanted to get you out of pain fast and effectively, but I also wanted to show you the lifestyle that would help you keep that result. I knew that one pill or two pills would never be enough. Would it get us 95% there and pretty fast? Yes, it does. It does. I use it that way too. I love it. And I take it as my daily preventive. Like I need turmeric for a lot of other things. Brain, gut, antioxidant, detox, all the things. And we can get into that in future episodes. But in our body, we've known for thousands of years that the lifestyle piece must be a piece of the puzzle or we will keep inflaming ourselves. And that's the whole reason that I wrote the Inflammation Code, my book. And why I built what I now teach in here as the 6 pillars of Ayurveda. Because inflammation doesn't live only in our joints. It lives in how you're sleeping, how you're digesting, how much stress your nervous system is carrying, how connected you feel to your own body, your relationships, your sense of purpose. You cannot chase inflammation down to its root by only treating the physical body. You have to address the whole person, mind, body, and spirit, because that's where the fire actually starts. And that's where it actually goes out. Your body has been talking to you the whole time. And today is the day you start listening to the whispers instead of waiting for the big scream. So here's my one ask. If this episode connected some dots for you, share it with the woman in your life, woman or man, who keeps saying, I'm just going to push through it. I'm just going to keep pushing and pushing. That's all I can do. She might be exactly who needs to hear this today, because she's not weak for pushing through. She just hasn't been told that the pushing through is the fire talking. So send it to her. That's my whole ask. I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and this has been the Inflammation Code podcast. Thank you so much for joining. I'll see you guys next time. To learn more about this podcast and all that I teach and share, I have my dosha quiz, elemental design quiz, 7-day inflammation challenge, my guides, everything on my website at drshivani.com. And I'm on Instagram as at dr.shivanigupta. And this podcast exists on YouTube as well if you want to see it in video form. So stay well, everyone. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week.